All right. Great. Hey, thank you very much, and welcome everyone. I'm really excited to be here. And as we get started on this, really, this is an exciting topic. The future is now, especially as we start thinking about manufacturing and where the technology is going to take us in the future, and how this is going to impact the vitality of our businesses and our economy. You can move to the next slide, Erica. Great. Hey, before we get started, I just want to give you a little bit of background about myself and and tie that into really the deep manufacturing legacy that we have in Northeast Ohio. So I'm not a native of Cleveland. I've moved here 4 years ago. And throughout my career, I was involved in a number of different interesting opportunities. I was part of a pure startup that really took a idea from scratch and disrupted an entire industry, taking it to #1 market share before it was acquired by a large industrial company. And then I spent 10 years inside of that industrial company with United Technologies, moving on to various levels of responsibility. And I joined Eaton Corporation in 2015, and I moved to Cleveland 4 years ago. And firmly believe that one of the best ways to get engaged in the community is to become active and participate with all of the other industry leaders and with the organizations that are going on inside of the community. And really, I wanted to share that because that's where I started to develop a real appreciation for what we have in Northeast Ohio. We're really blessed. If we think about, where we are as a region, we have one of the highest density of manufacturing facilities anywhere inside of the U.S. Just think about that, over 7,000 manufacturing facilities just inside of Northeast Ohio. Furthermore, we have a very diverse base of organizations. We're not concentrated in any one industry. We're not really dependent upon what happens in, let's say, automotive as an example, but we have a wide base crossing many different market segments. We're involved in both discrete manufacturing as well as process manufacturing. We have a large number of small to medium enterprises, and we also have some globally recognized leaders. And this base is something that we can really build upon going forward. Now, the other thing that I found interesting in just learning more about the Cleveland community was just the economic impact that manufacturing has on Northeast Ohio. If you look at the chart on the right-hand side, there's over $38 billion worth of economic activity just driven from manufacturing inside of our region. So it's really an understatement to say that, manufacturing is an important part of our economy, but I'd say it's really a very critical part of our economy. And as manufacturing goes, so goes the whole economy around Northeast Ohio. Next slide. Now, over several years, anybody that's been involved in manufacturing realizes that continuous improvement is the key to making manufacturing go. It's really driven by principles around Lean Six Sigma and its efficiency that allows us to continually go and be competitive in the markets that we play in. We know that we're continually under pressure. Prices always drop over time. The components and materials that we produce tend to inflate. So we have to continually look at how do we drive efficiency and lean into our operations to stay competitive. And if you look at this chart, really, Northeast Ohio, and really a large round of applause to everybody, has done a fantastic job at staying competitive. If you go from a baseline in 2001 and just look at what's happened over the last 20 years, there's been over a 50% productivity gain that's occurred just from applying the principles of continuous improvement, of Lean, of Six Sigma, and driving efficiency into our operations. Now, while that is great work, we also need to take a look at what's happened over the last 5 years. And if you look at that, it really shows that our productivity has been basically flat over the last 5 or 6 years. And I can assure you that our operations folks have driven about every ounce of productivity that they can using traditional methods out of the process. So what are we going to do now to really drive and increase productivity and take manufacturing to that next level? Next slide. And it really comes around, where do we obtain that next wave of productivity, and being able to go into the next stage of manufacturing, of evolution or of disruption. And this transformation is going to be driven by digital technologies. And this presents the biggest opportunity for us as manufacturers to broaden our horizon and achieve sustainable growth for the future. Now, a couple of things that we look at and say, well, I've heard about digital, I've heard about Industry 4.0, I've heard about smart manufacturing. All of these words are kind of used interchangeably. But I think there's a few things that we need to take into account when we start looking at this digital transformation. And it's really some of these comments that are on the lower right-hand corner. Is manufacturing is now a global exercise. People are competing globally with products that they produce. And as a country, let alone region, we really have to be at the forefront of that if we're going to be competitive. And we can't be in a position when we're lagging, when other countries, other regions, other businesses are going and utilizing technology and transforming themselves. We will not be able to compete unless we keep pace and actually out-innovate with the adoption of these technologies. And I think the other comment out there, when you look at what's being viewed as standout companies embracing this new technology, the U.S. accounts for only 7% of what would be considered world leaders. So this is both an opportunity for us and a way for us to look at how do we transform our organizations, but it's also it also should give us, allow us to kind of take a step back and think about what could happen if we don't apply the technologies, because we could find ourselves in a very uncompetitive position, and over time, that's going to end up putting us out of business. Next slide. So what is smart manufacturing? And you know what, you've all heard a lot of different words that are out there. You've heard Industry 4.0, you've heard Internet of Things, smart manufacturing. I'm going to give you actually a very simple way to think about smart manufacturing or these terms. It's really the application of digital technologies to the manufacturing, lean, and continuous improvement disciplines. So just think about that. Just everything that you're doing today, using lean, using continuous improvement, how can you apply digital technologies to help advance in those improvements, in those efficiencies? And if we do that effectively, what we're going to find is that we're extending our scope, not just internal to the four walls of our company, but we're going past that, and we're looking at how can I interact with our customers? How can I improve the relationships with my customers? And on the other side, how can I build a connectivity into my suppliers and in my supply base? So this is really, the way that I think is going to be the most effective for us to think about it and not get caught up in a lot of the buzzwords and a lot of the jargons that are out there. But just think about, when I do continual improvement, is there technology that I could use to help drive the process at a much faster pace? And there's a number of questions that we can ask ourselves just as we go through this. As an example, you can look and say, okay, where is the most energy being consumed inside of my factory? And if I knew that, would I have the ability to change my operations potentially to increase energy efficiency? Do I know really all of my runtime metrics on my machines? And if I knew that, can I tie that together with when there may be a failure and get ahead of the curve and predict when I might need to do maintenance, as opposed to waiting until a failure occurs, or just being driven by a simple schedule? Asking the question of, what information do I have today that's being manually captured and transposed, where I could be capturing it digitally and then making decisions to affect my operations based on the capture of that information. My customer service portals, do the customers have the ability to come in and see where their orders are, to see where they are in the manufacturing pipeline, to see where they are in the delivery pipeline? This is going to give you intimacy with your customers and allow you to, again, increase efficiency outside of your four walls. Similarly, on the supply chain side, do we know where the raw materials are? Is there a marketplace that allows us to go and evaluate pricing and see what the different options are, and then being able to choose the combination of price, inventory, availability to help drive the efficiency of my manufacturing plant? So these are some of the questions you could ask, but really more importantly, how do you apply digital technology to what you do every day to go and drive efficiency? That's really the key question that we have to ask if we're going to be leaders in this area. Next slide. I want to just highlight a collaboration success story that really illustrates some of the ways that digital technology was applied, albeit in maybe some nascent forms, but just some ways that collaboration occurred and digital technologies were applied to go and take a product from concept to mass production in a matter of weeks. And this is really, I think, a great success story for the region. And it was a collaborative effort that occurred right at the beginning or middle point of the COVID-19 pandemic. And it was a combination of efforts from large companies such as Eaton, small companies such as Togus, and customers like university hospitals, manufacturing expertise from Magnet, from Case Western, manufacturing collaboration from the Manufacturing Extension Partnership, and economic development teams such as Team Neo and Jobs Ohio. And it was really, how do we create a power of focus with one simple objective? How do you supply critical PPE to our healthcare workers in the middle of a pandemic? And I will say, it really is a great success story for Ohio and Northeast Ohio. In a matter, if you start from week 0, we're able to understand needs of customers and then go and apply digital design techniques to send that over to additive manufacturing organizations and produce samples of product inside of a day. Get that in the hands of customers, be able to get immediate feedback, excuse me, make design modifications almost in real time, reapply the process, and by the end of 1 week, come up with, in this case, a face shield design that was both reusable, that was cost effective, that could be mass produced stuff, and met the needs of the healthcare workers in the community. Now, from there was a lot of collaboration that took place. We realized that you couldn't use additive manufacturing to produce the quantities that were needed. In this case, there was a target of 1 million face shields that were needed. Additive manufacturing simply is too slow and too expensive to be able to do that. So we went and took this digital design and had the tooling built to meet the production, and then collaborated with a lot of local manufacturers inside of the area to go and produce some of the components, from headbands to procurement of plastics to foam and foam insulation that goes on the inside, for comfort, for assembly. And it was really a yeoman's effort that was driven by the community. And Ethan Karp and the Magnet organization did a fantastic job pulling all of the suppliers together around the region to really focus on how do we supply this product into the market. We were able to leverage a lot of expertise from the various organizations around supply chain management, keep that focus and urgency, and really starting with mass production at about week 3, deliver face shields, over 1 million of them, in a 6 to 8 week period. And I'd say what this really illustrated is that, we have a vibrant manufacturing community inside of the Northeast Ohio region. All of the parts and products were mostly locally sourced and produced. We were able to respond to a crisis, and just that collaboration and teamwork of bringing people together on a single mission shows what we can accomplish as a region if we get alignment and leverage all of the strengths and capabilities that we have in our manufacturing base. Next slide. Now, while that was a great success story, I want to just show kind of a next evolution around that. And it's really what happens when you start asking the question, if I applied digital technology to something like traditional PPE, what could happen? And you start looking around and you see some of the changes that I'm sure many of you had put in place inside of your own manufacturing facilities to bring people back to work safely and to keep them at work safely. It may start with just, hey, doing temperature checks in the beginning of the morning when people come into work, being able to make sure that there were barriers and physical distance reminders that were put in place. And then, if there was a COVID diagnosis, how do you go through and keep everybody else safe and just kind of trace through, who they came in contact with and where? And you see that while we were able to do this and get people back to work, it's very manual, very labor intensive. So if we applied digital technology to this, what kind of solution could we come up with? And you see on the right-hand side is essentially a component that went through the same process as developing the traditional PPE, where we engaged end users, looked at their pain points, came up with the use cases, applied additive manufacturing principles and digital design to come up with a product that could be adhered to traditional PPE or can be worn independently, and then looked at applying technology that would be able to sense if two people are wearing this device, are they within a range of safe distance? And if they're not, how long has it been in distance? Let's give a notification to the user wearing this to, hey, they've been exposed, they've been in contact with somebody that has been closer than 6 feet for more than 15 minutes, and I want to alert them so that they can start stepping away. And then if there is a diagnosis or somebody comes down with COVID, how can we go back and just run an automatic trace and say, Mike Regelski was in contact with these 5 people over the last couple of days, and now I'm going to be able to go and notify them so that I don't have any further outbreak inside of my facility, because if you have outbreaks, that contributes to downtime and lost productivity. So I'm bringing this up really to show what can happen when you just start asking the question of, how do I apply digital technologies to go and solve some of the challenges that we face at work every day? Next slide. You move forward, Erica. Okay, so I'm not sure if the slide is advancing, but really the time is now, and that's the message I'd like to leave you with. There's been a lot of tremendous work going on over the past year and a half about creating a smart manufacturing industry 4.0 vision for Northeast Ohio and the greater Cleveland area. And it's really been done it's been called the Cleveland Innovation Project, and it's really designed to say, how do we take this tremendous asset that we have in our large, diverse manufacturing population and base, and how do we go and create the right level of investment and focus in digital technologies that can be applied to help us transform our business, achieve higher degrees of competitiveness, and grow our base as well as growing our talent, people, and becoming a leader in the manufacturing area. So there's a number of different strategies that are around that, and it's really to go and create um, lighthouse cases where we can go and show what we've done, how digital technology has been applied to help transform a use case or a company, and then growing our talent, making sure that we have the right investments so that we can attract, train, and then most importantly, retain people and help them upskill and understand these technologies. And then really focus on innovation. How do we drive new processes, new products, new services, and then grow and attract other companies in the area, into the region that can leverage and partner with us and our manufacturing base to help grow our efficiency, grow our innovation, and increase our GDP. And lastly, that would be a way to go and drive leadership and really establish the Northeast Ohio area and greater Cleveland area as the industrial manufacturing center of excellence inside of the U.S., if not the world. So with that, I know there's a great agenda for the rest of the day, but I want to thank you for the opportunity to just come in and give a little bit of the message and some of the work that's going on, and wish you all the very best applying these technologies to increase your overall business efficiency. Thank you.